we both play cards, and we play bid whist,
Yeah.
and you have the ace, the king, and the queen, right?
Yep.
Most likely you're going to win. You could win with the ace, king, and the queen. And when it comes to building wealth, the ace is cash flow.
Yep.
The king is cash.
Yep.
The queen is credit.
Yep.
So you want to have all of them. And sometimes we hear financial education. People will say, "Hey, man, is it about student loans? Is it about paying off debt?" That's part of it. But we got to go above the line and have different conversations. Yeah. I think changing the wealth gap is going to start in conversations, and it's going to start with that conversation that's going to lead to a new relationship, and that's going to build new connections. Yeah. Because if you have the right choices, you can make the right decisions.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Alvin Darian here. I spent over 2 decades in the financial industry helping people just like you. As the author of books like Don't Let Adversity Steal Your Legacy and The 8 Financial Breakthroughs, and as the CEO and co-founder of Financial Pro Network, I am proud to present to you the Leadership and Money Podcast.
All right. How's everyone doing today? Alvin Darian here. Today we're going to talk about, on our show, we want to share with you how to close the wealth gap. Here on Leadership and Money, we're always going to have a leadership topic and a money topic. Today we're going to combine the two. And I can tell you this, you guys are in for a treat. I have one of my very good friends and business partners here, Mr. Gus Tucker. Gus, welcome to the show, man.
It's good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
And you came down from Chicago, right?
Came down from Chicago. I'm on the South Side, and I came from the South Side.
That's what's up,
it's
man.
All good.
Yeah, man. So, when we first walked in, you said, what did the sign say?
It says, basically, don't sleep on the South Side.
Yeah, man. We on the rise, man.
We're on the rise.
It's so ironic. I grew up on the South Side of Savannah, Georgia.
Okay.
And now I live in the South Side in Atlanta, Georgia. Yep. So it's a little, I stay in the South, right?
Well, if this is kind of a funny statistic, but if you look at most big cities, people look like us.
Yeah.
We live on the South Side.
And you know what, man? And today we're going to have a very deep conversation on closing the wealth gap.
Yeah, it's a problem.
I know you've been in leadership.
It's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity, right? It's a challenge that we can all overcome. Yep. I believe we have some resources and tools to overcome that. Before we get started into the topic, let everybody know who you are and how long you've been in this industry.
Okay. So I've been in the industry for 22 years. Mm-hmm. And I started out, when I started in the industry, I was a corporate guy. I spent over 20 years in corporate America at various levels, working up to where I was a, vice president, corporate suite kind of guy, but just wanted to do something on my own. And really, it was at my church where I started teaching financial principles.
Wow.
It was, God's role with your money and your role with your money. So I started teaching that. Mm-hmm. And what I soon saw was, man, the education of people about money in our church, and we had a large gap of incomes and education levels, but across them, there were problems. I'm like, man, this is a big problem. And then a friend of mine, out the blue, not so out the blue, called me and said, hey, Gus, I just started with this company, and we're involved in financial literacy and teaching financial education. I'm like, okay, I'm in.
Perfect timing, right?
Yeah, what are we going to do? So they came to my office downtown, and the president of that company pitched me on it, and he got started. I said, okay, I'm in. How much is it?
Wow, man, that timing is perfect.
Timing is perfect. So
I guess that was the favor right there, right?
That was the favor. So I got started in almost 22 years ago.
22 years, and you take more of an educational approach still to this day, correct?
Well, to this day, you have to, because one of the things that happens in our industry is that people buy things they don't understand.
Wow.
And when you buy something you don't understand, you most likely are going to get the wrong thing.
Yeah. And sometimes we buy things we really don't need to impress people who really don't care. And then we're consumers, we buy a lot of things, especially here in the U.S., You go to other countries, you don't see as much stuff. Here in the U.S., we notice we buy a lot of things.
Well, to some degree in the U.S., to a lot of people, you think about social media. If you're successful, yours is bigger, brighter, badder, more than the other guys. But what if the other person really doesn't like that?
Yeah.
And what's important to them is something that's really an experience or family, and it's not shown by having the biggest, brightest. But that's what we tend to attribute value to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know today's topic, we're going to talk about closing the wealth gap. We hear about it all the time. We go to seminars. They're talking about it. We want to make sure you have the tools and the resources to close the wealth gap, in your community and your culture. And Gus, how did you grow up, man? Did you grow up with a lot of money? Your parents had millions of dollars, or middle class, or how did you grow up, man?
You know what? I would say that we were lower middle class folks, and with a great work ethic.
Okay.
Great values, and great character.
Got it.
Okay, but lower middle class. We grew up in a home, multi-generational home. My father passed away when I was 2.5.
Wow.
And my brother was a year old, so we moved in with my mother's parents.
Okay.
And then my uncle lived there. So there were 3 generations in the household, which was actually a pretty cool way to grow up.
Wow. You know what? Growing up in Savannah, Georgia, on the south side of Savannah, my dad was our coach. My dad worked at the post office. My mom was a school teacher, and we had vacation 2 times a year, and just had a great lifestyle, man. We went to church together. We ate dinner at the kitchen table, and then my dad would start showing us his checks. He would show us his check stubs and break it down, what was overtime, what was regular time. And at a young age, 10 years old, I had a real understanding of money and paychecks and cash flow. And every time he paid his bills, I was right there, even at a young age, learning. So I believe I had an advantage point because I was able to see, as they say with grown folks, are handling money. And some families never show their kids what's going on, and they're in the dark, and you don't find out until you're 21 years old or 30 years old, or you find out when you're on your own.
Yeah. Around our family, that didn't happen. Because I grew up in Ohio, a little town called Warren, Ohio.
Okay. I'm familiar with Warren.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Rust Belt town now, but it was automobiles, steel, a lot of heavy labor. But people made good money in those towns, and they lived nice lifestyles. But it was all tied to that job. And when the jobs left, the town went down. But for me, when I learned about money, is we moved to Cleveland, Ohio in 1968. And while I was there, Martin Luther King got shot. That was one of the things that was scary.
Wow.
There. Yeah, wow. Man. So that was a whole nother story. But single mom, my mom was working literally in a freezer. She worked in a freezer, moving food around and
I did that
meats and stuff
at
like
the grocery store. I used to work at a Piggly Wiggly, so
right.
I know about working in a freezer, man.
Right. So our first Christmas in Cleveland is when I learned about money. And she said to my brother and I, Gus and Daryl, there is no Santa Claus.
Wow.
She said, I'm Santa Claus.
Okay. At least you didn't find out as a grown man, man.
I said, there's no Santa Claus. So if somebody's watching this and you think there's a Santa Claus, I'm sorry. But
you just ruined it for a bunch of kids.
There's no Santa Claus, and you're not getting any gifts this year. So what we got were literally, how you go to like Walgreens nowadays?
And they used to give us fruit. It's something grandma would give us fruit, some T-shirts and underwear, right? That was Christmas.
Well, we did get some T-shirts, but we got from like the 5 and Dime store a little gun that had some pellets in it that when my brother shot at each other. It must have been $1 or something.
Wow, man. Those are good times, man. And at the time, you think your family has money, and then when you get older, you realize, hey, there's more money. There's a gap. Yeah. And so let's talk about it, man. I know there's a lot of information out there. It's information overload.
Yeah.
You can look on Google, social media, and we want to take people from information to education, and from education to implementation. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, one of my sayings that I always say is, you can Google information, but you can't Google wisdom.
Whoa, man, that's good.
Okay? You can Google information, but you can't Google wisdom. And the best way to get wisdom is from somebody else's experience.
Yeah.
Because your experience is expensive. It costs you time and money. So one of the first ways I think we can attack the wealth gap is, and the wisdom is this: financial education, and we'll talk about this at another time and more in depth. Financial education really starts with, how do you make money?
Yeah, and I remember a conversation we had last month, and we said one of the key things we have to understand is cash flow.
Yeah.
More income coming in and less money going out Can you elaborate on some of that conversation we had?
Yeah,
about a
and
month
so
ago?
here's the thing too, and the words people use to describe money is also interesting, because cash flow doesn't necessarily mean income.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily mean income. So cash flow, how do you create cash flow? Well, you create cash flow by solving a problem. We're here in this great studio, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the time we're here, we're going to pay these gentlemen at least $2 or $3, right?
I think it's a lot more
It's
than that.
more than
man.
that, right?
Yeah.
We got, why? Because they're solving a problem that we have.
Yep.
So they're creating value by solving a problem that we have
Yep.
that we can't solve for ourselves. And so that's going to create cash flow for them.
You know, when you think about it, we both play cards, and you know we play bid whist.
Yeah.
And you have the ace, the king, and the queen, right?
Yep.
Most likely you're going to win. You could win with the ace, king, and the queen. And when it comes to building wealth, the ace is cash flow.
Yep.
The king is cash.
Yep.
The queen is credit.
Yep.
So you want to have all of them. And sometimes we hear financial education. People will say, "Hey, man, is it about student loans? Is it about paying off debt?" That's part of it. But we got to go above the line and have different conversations. Yeah. I think changing the wealth gap is going to start in conversations, and it's going to start with that conversation that's going to lead to a new relationship, and that's going to build new connections. Yeah. Because if you have the right choices, you can make the right decisions.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the best choices, it's hard to make a decision when it comes to money. So I truly believe we can help individuals get more cash flow, build up cash, and make sure your credit is very strong, so you could have, you know, some buying power, man. Yeah. And we're going to talk about home ownership too, because that's one of the keys right there. But it comes down to having the proper education from the right person who has your vested interest.
Yeah.
People can give you bad advice, but I've never heard anyone say, I got some bad wisdom.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're exactly right. And as it relates to, I don't think it's as much that way today, but it was when I was coming up, grow up, get a good job, get a good education, get a good job. Okay. When you get a job, people don't think about it. You have a fixed income.
Yes, from day one.
You're on day one. You get this job. Oh, I'm making X amount of dollars. If the next day I came in and said, okay, how can you double your income from this job? You'd say, security. Could they come get security? Because this isn't going to work. I believe one of the things we have to teach people how to do is how to create cash flow from more of an entrepreneurial perspective. So therefore they can control that number that hits their bank account.
You know what? It's so funny you bring that up, man. I worked in corporate America for 1 year. Started May 1st and quit May 1st. I didn't like the CC emails on everything, right? And I had a manager / boss that did not, his attitude was so rough. I didn't want to deal with that. I'm like, okay, I'm 23, 24 years old. I said, do I want to live the rest of my life like this?
Right.
And I jumped into business, man. I've been a business owner, entrepreneur, 1099 since 24 years old.
Right.
20 years.
20 years.
With no W-2.
No W-2.
And so I can tell you this, it's cash flow. And yes, when you work off a performance, it can be scary in the beginning. But I can tell you this, it was the best reward, the best decision I made was to make money for myself and not for other people.
And Alvin, I know you to a large degree, and what I do know is this. It's not that owning your business is scary or inconsistent. People are inconsistent.
Yes.
And you've been very consistent, and you've learned the fundamentals, and you've applied the fundamentals. And as I have a coach that said in basketball, he says, Gus, there's no fun without the fundamentals.
Yes.
Right?
And we got to have strategy too. And I want to share a strategy with everyone that I truly believe can help close this wealth gap.
Yep.
And you got to have strategy. You got to have a system. You got to have a coach. Think about it. Michael Jordan did not win a championship. I know you're in Chicago.
Yeah.
You're a Michael Jordan fan. I'm a big Kobe guy. But they both had the same coach, Phil Jackson.
Yeah.
And they both had the triangle offense. And they both had a big man that they can lead people to follow. So all of those things help, right? If you have strategy, we can close the wealth gap.
Yeah.
If you got a system, if you have a coach, we can close the wealth gap. And I know the educational part with our 8 financial breakthroughs, that starts it.
Yep.
Once you go through the homework and the 8 financial breakthroughs, you're going to get closer. You're going to have more insight. You're going to have more wisdom.
Yep.
But I want to share with everyone what I call the 5 M's. So if you're taking notes, write this down. And it's no particular order, but I'll go in the order I believe you should get it done.
Okay.
And if you have these 5 M's in your family, if I had the 5 M's in my family and everyone else's family out there, we will close this wealth gap so fast. Mm-hmm. So here's the first M. The first M, I truly believe, if we're going to close the wealth gap, we should have a minimum of $1 million of life insurance.
Yeah.
Why life insurance first? Let me tell you. You now have a peace of mind. So if something happened to you, you know your family's getting $1 million tax-free. Now, having that coverage and protection for your family allows you to go out there and build your dream business. Anything you want to add to that, Gus?
Well, I ask this question all the time. I said, what are the 2 things, the 2 most powerful things that could derail your financial plan? And people say all kinds of things, getting into debt, doing this. I said, no, the first one is dying.
Yeah.
Dying will mess up your financial plan.
Mess up the whole plan.
Mess up the whole plan,
Yeah.
right? The second thing can be worse. Well, what's worse than dying? Almost dying.
Yeah.
Because if you almost die, but you can't work, the bills are going up
Yeah.
and the income's going down, and you're experiencing both of them.
Uncle Bill shows up every month.
Every bill. Man, Uncle Bill, he be bringing some kids with him.
Uncle Bill is something serious, man. And so the second M, and I know we talk about this a lot, is $1 million in business funding.
Mm-hmm.
See, once you have $1 million in business funding, now you can fund your business, fund your dream, and you don't have the pressure of using your income or using your assets to build your business. Mm-hmm. And I know you've been in the business funding space for a while, and share some wisdom with everyone. Well,
I'll tell you, I'm always trying to learn. Okay, so I was watching a gentleman, and he was talking about how, as we talk about emergency funds, and he said, yeah, you ought to have that, but you should have $1 million, 12 months income, or $1 million for opportunities, because the economy is cyclical. Okay, and people with money, they make money when the economy is down.
Yes.
So if you got $1 million and everybody's running around for their life, you can snatch up all kind of great assets for cheap.
Yes. So the business funding is very, very
It's very important.
So if we're going to close this wealth gap, right? So the first M is life insurance, $1 million. The second M is going to be $1 million in business funding.
Yep.
The third M is a business that pays you $1 million. So some people say they're in business, but they really have an expensive hobby. And some people think they're in business, but they're self-employed. They may have one virtual assistant or one VA and think they're in business. So if we can take that $1 million business, and have you make $1 million cash flow.
Yes.
That's over 80 grand a month.
Yes.
That will help with the cash flow part.
Yeah. So and this is an area that I'm focused on right now, is scaling our business. And I'm reading a lot, getting coached a lot, and taking actions to scale the business, because a business is having a team of people you work with to create an income.
Absolutely.
It's not you. Okay, you're leading the business and directing the business and giving wisdom to those people in your business, but they're a team and they can create value for clients without you. That's what we're working on right now, really growing that.
I tell you what, man, I'm so excited for the curriculum we're building.
Oh, man.
And the processes, the systems, and we're seeing the results, man. That's the great part.
It's happening.
You know, we're taking people from A to B, and we don't leave them at B. We keep going because it's a growth thing, you know. The doctor studies medicine. The lawyer practices law. We study money and business, which leads me now, you know, another important part of the 5 M's is the next one would be $1 million in real estate.
Yeah.
You know, that is one of the keys to building wealth. You got to have a place to live. And you can count your primary residence too. You want to make sure that you have $1 million worth of real estate that's going to help close the wealth gap.
I agree, and we were talking a little bit on the car, and in the past I've owned a hybrid real estate development company, and so I was listening to this gentleman yesterday, and I said, you know what, I got to get back to that, because here's something to think about. I don't know if I should tell people. Okay, I'm gonna tell you. Most people are never going to save enough money to get.
No, they're not.
To retire.
You got to have systems, resources, a team.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And with the 5 M's, if someone coach you there, you can get there.
You can get there, but you got to start early.
Yep.
And you got to be consistent.
Yep.
A lot of people haven't done that. So if you haven't, you need to get consistent. But what can help shortcut that is real estate.
It could.
It could help shortcut that with the proper coaching and the proper guidance.
Yeah.
Real estate could help you.
Once you get the first 4 set up, the last one would be $1 million liquid. $1 million cash.
That will happen, period.
Over time, if you do the first 4 right. So, when we talk about closing the wealth gap, people talk about the challenge or the problem or the concerns. Nobody comes up with solution. And I want to make sure that we have the solution and the strategy to close that wealth gap.
One of my coaches tells me, don't fight for your limitations. Okay? So we as people of color, and if you're watching this, you might not be a person of color. But here's the thing. There's no they out there that's holding you back from making this happen.
Yep, because you have information now.
You have information.
You need education, and you need a coach.
And you need a coach. And then it's about execution. You can't just have all this and then not do anything with it.
Yeah.
You've got to take action in the marketplace. And if you'll do that under the tutelage of a coach that's been there, you have a greater chance of making it than you ever had in the past.
Got it, man. Before I close this out, any closing words on this segment?
Stay dialed in to this segment. Alvin's doing a great job in terms of the information he's putting out, and he's sharing information that is about what he's doing. It's not things he's trying to do. It's things he is doing. So stay dialed into this program.
I tell you what, everyone, today we talked about closing the wealth gap, and we wanted to give you a solution to some of the challenges out there. So make sure that you have a coach. Make sure you get the right information. Make sure you get the right education. And you got to take action, everyone. And I'm going to leave you with this again. The 5 M's will transform your wealth and close the wealth gap. The first M is $1 million of life insurance. The second M will be $1 million in business funding. The third M, $1 million business that's going to cash flow you $1 million, right? The fourth M is going to be $1 million in real estate. And then the fifth one, you want to build it up so you can have $1 million liquid cash. If we can get 50,000 families, 100,000 families, 1 million families to do that, we close that wealth gap, Gus.
And most people, if they have a person that's gone in front of them, or they say, if I can see it, I can be it, we help enough families at the grassroots level do that. And then other people say, well, they're just like me.
Yep.
I can do this too.
Yep.
And then they'll have hope. And people can live without, water and other things, but people can't live without hope.
You got to have hope. And everyone, remember this, the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of change. I look forward to working with you. For more information, click in the bio. If you want to schedule a time with one of our financial professionals, make sure you click in the link and we will sit down with you. Remember, a 1-minute TikTok or Instagram or social media post may get it started, but you need to talk to someone for at least 30 minutes to an hour to get a plan and strategy in place. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you for your time today. Have a